Welcome to Mixing Memos from B7A Audio. I'm your host, Christopher Scott Cooper. When I was a young budding engineer, fortune smiled upon me in the form of a Neve 4036 console as my main work desk. I learned my craft on a classic. And in the middle of that console were two compressors that changed my perspective on what compression actually does. The Neve 2254 comp is a magical, legendary processor that I used on everything, literally. They have a silky smooth response that is transparent, yet imparts a sense of presence and warmth that only a few other classic comps can do. Sadly, it has been 15 years since I had the ability to work with this lovely device. But then I discovered PluginAlliance and their version of the Lindell 254E plugin. But wait, they have a new version, an updated multi-band with some extra functions. PluginAlliance has outdone themselves with this interpretation of a classic. The abilities that current software allow has changed classic plugin emulation, adding functions and abilities never available in the hardware version. Let's have a gander at this awesome piece of gear, first as a mono setup on bass and vocals. 3 adjustable bands, with solo and in and out ability for each band. Set ratio, gain in 1 dB steps, threshold in 2 dB steps, attack and release knobs just as on the original hardware, though the attack has a faster setting than the hardware version. The auto automatically compensates for any reduction in gain to output. Meter knob with meter, red left-hand numbering for in and out levels, and black right-hand numbering for gain reduction or control of the signal. At the bottom, new possibilities. A sidechain high-pass filter, adjust knob for crossover point, mix knob, and a master gain. 3 buttons, link, enabling linking of parameters in each band, niveau, which activates a filter on the compressor's sidechains to compensate for the natural 3 dB octave slope of music, and nuke. Pretty sure that last one is self-explanatory. And lastly, an in and out button on the bottom right. At the very top, we have an A and B settings button with a copy function in between. Selected memory is lit up in blue. Then we have a gain staging section on the input and output that is a bit more precise than the master gain at the bottom. And on the far right, a menu for About, calibration for different metering options, and oversampling with selectable values. Generally, when working at higher sample rates such as I do here at 96 kHz, oversampling is off. And something a little new here, you can actually resize the window. That's pretty cool. Our first example is a live recording featuring Tony Lindsay of Santana and some stellar players doing a Stevie Wonder classic. I utilized the 354E on both bass and vocals in different ways. On the bass, I wanted to add some presence and roundness to a 5-string bass without squashing the life out of the performance. Set my crossovers at 202 and 3.14 kHz, deployed the nuke function, and mixed in the amount I wanted, basically a parallel compression approach. I wanted to bring in a bit more of the excitement the player exhibited during the performance. First without, and then with, and then out again, as indicated by the bypass at the top. I've muted the vocals in this example. On Tony's vocals, I wanted to bring out the mid-range on his powerful voice, bring even more presence to him in the mix, and control the proximity effect on the Telefunken M80 he's singing into. And I wanted to open up the sparkle in the top end without adding any sibilance issues. Yes, a tall order for one comp. With 3 bands, I was able to do all of that. The 2254 is still my go-to for vocals after all these years. I'll bring in the 354E in and out as we listen.
I said, looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy, that was a long time ago. Then my only worry, but for Christmas, what would be my toy? Even though we sometimes would not get a thing.
This has become my new favorite tool. I love the sound of this. It reminds me so much of the true original 2254, but in a multi-band configuration. We haven't even looked at the possibilities in the stereo setup because of the mid-side capabilities that come with this multi-band. So far in this demonstration, we've talked about the mono aspects. So in part 2, We'll talk about putting this on a mix bus. So stay tuned to Mixing Memos. I'm your host, Christopher Scott Cooper. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you again soon for part 2 of the 354E from PluginAlliance and Lindell Audio. Cheers.
Said greeted at the back door, but boy, thought I told you not to take your